kind of random.
What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is the rap game with Vegas. Long time no hear from, long time no see. And if you're looking at this like, well, what are you doing? You actually playing video games and just talking? Well, yeah, sort of. But it's kind of a way for me to give you dual content, so to speak, right? Some people like to watch people play games, so whatever. You are watching NBA 2K22, my career. That's me, number 3. When I played for the New Orleans Pelicans, asked for a trade. I'm in BK now. I'm kind of regretting it. I'm not gonna lie, because we were starting to click. You know, Zion was hurt for a minute, and I was just like, yo, this is not why I was on this team, you know. So I wanted to trade, and then all of a sudden we went on a roll. Something's wrong with the game. Bars. But if you're new to the rap game with Vegas, I'm your host, Vegas, of Hip Hop Now Podcast. I do a weekly podcast titled Hip Hop Now Podcast. Give you some news. Hold up, Steph. Back up, man. But this podcast, sort of video type thing, is designed basically while I'm playing the game, I'm going to talk about certain things. And what I'm talking about today is Kendrick Lamar's double album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Kendrick Lamar's last album on TDE. It's been a hell of a run for Kendrick Lamar on this label. No one's saying this is the last and final album we'll ever see from him. But I'm not going to hold you. This is sort of like an impression / review / I guess it is review. And what stands out to me the most when you're talking about Kendrick Lamar is the fact that this brother doesn't really care what the outside world is doing. He grabs what he needs from it, right? Like a good writer, not just an MC, but a writer. A good writer will observe the world around them and take the inspirations and take the stories and reflect on them from a personal perspective. And that's what Kendrick Lamar does. You know who else does that pretty well, whether you agree with him or not? Kanye West. I think the reason why Kanye West was so polarizing but also so relatable was because he wore his feelings on his sleeve. Like he put how he felt about things. Oh, I'm going to the rack. Oh, get my shit punched. He put his feelings, on his sleeve and in his music, and he reflected off of it. And it's sort of like what we come to music for, right? Like, why do we like music? We like it because, of course, right, entertainment value. The first thing that comes to mind is that it sounds good. And for some people, that's all they want. That's all they need. They don't want to understand what you mean, blah, blah, blah. But that's not always the truth. You don't have the truth. You don't have to be the biggest music fan, cerebral music fan, in order to feel somebody's music on a deeper level than that first click or the hook or just the beat. It's kind of why we like the artists we like. It's why we call people the GOAT in music and call albums classic, because they do more than entertain us. With Kendrick Lamar, as you can see, for those watching on YouTube, we are getting smacked 12-2 by the Golden State Warriors. But watch how I work. Watch how I work in this video. I haven't scored yet, but you'll see. But nevertheless, when it comes to Kendrick Lamar, he hasn't missed yet. It's amazing to watch because even his counterparts have had situations where they haven't had, the best album this go around, but they had hits. right? But never have any of them had this much consistency with an album. Drake is consistent with hits. It's like every time he drop, he got a hit. Every time he feature, he got a hit. He's consistent with that. But I think the albums themselves are hit or miss. You know what I mean? I don't see too many people that would go back to his first album. You know, you got to be a hardcore Drake fan to go back and listen. Well, I'm working. Y'all see that? Boom, done. But you got to be a hardcore fan to go back and listen to that first album in its entirety. And maybe I'm saying that because I was a grown man when it came out. Or maybe for someone, right? Maybe this was the album that was out during their prom. So maybe there's some sentimental value. But again, what Kendrick does and why people say the things they say, whether it be extremely negative or extremely positive, is because he's doing something. People didn't wake up and say, we're gonna anoint Kendrick Lamar King Kendrick just because we like a couple of songs. It's okay if you don't understand. It's okay if you do understand, but you just don't like the way he conveys the messages, right? Maybe you don't like his beat selection. To me, that's fine. But getting into this album, and for those who, they don't want to really hear all of this, like, come on, man, get to what do you think? I couldn't score this because I just heard it maybe 3 times already. I couldn't score this and say it's a 10 or, it's a 5 out of 5. But it's pretty up there. It's sort of a slow burn because when you listen to Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers the first time, you're not catching everything because I didn't. Some things just sound like songs. Some songs just sound like Kendrick was just doing what he do, right? And there wasn't much to it. And, I had to go back and listen. And one thing about Kendrick, he'll pop up with an interview. He'll pop up with a video. You'll get explanations. You'll get to see the lyrics written down, and then it makes more sense. And some people will say, well, you should be able to get it, blah, blah, blah. How great can it be? You should be able to listen and get it. Well, not everybody is able to keep up. I know people who, would just catch in lines from the 90s just because, they liked the song, but they couldn't follow lyric by lyric and understand the depths of every single thing that was said. Some people just like what they like and press play. But I felt when I pressed play the first time on this album, I liked it, but I didn't have a reason why beyond I like what I heard. Right? There were some songs that obviously stood out. So for those who don't know, haven't listened, this is a double album from Kendrick Lamar. 9 songs per side, if you will. A couple of features on here, Summer Walker, Ghostface, Kodak Black. I think Lil Wayne's on here, but I think he's just talking also. Some production from Alchemist. P-Rock's doing some scratches on here. I think he's also talking. That's the dope part about Kendrick Lamar's albums. You can't grasp all of those people being on this album unless they got a verse. Right? You can't. You literally, it's like reading the credits when you find out that all of these people had a hand in making this album. I didn't read no credits. I just listened straight. You couldn't have told me Alchemist had a song on here because I wouldn't have recognized it. I think that's what I like the most, is that the contributions of the people who, in most cases, have a signature sound, they don't stick out. They sound like a part of what's being presented. And that's what's really dope. That's what producing is all about. It's not necessarily about I send you a hot beat, you like it, you drop your bars, hook, the end. Sometimes it's really intricate. Sometimes some people would say, well, why didn't you just get a P-Rock beat? How you gonna get P-Rock to just do scratches? It's Pete Rock. He's still making heat. Well, when you're creating an album and you're listening to a song, and if you're Kendrick Lamar or any other artist, you're saying to yourself, man, this song needs some scratches, but just not, any DJ. Somebody really seasoned, somebody who could really lend an ear to the song, who can hear it and have ideas in the way that I would think on a deep level. And maybe Pete Rock came to mind. I gotta get Pete Rock on this. It's little things like that he's done throughout his career with his albums that make them more than meets the eye, so to speak. We're not talking Transformers. So let's just run down real quick why we say he hasn't dropped a bad album at all. Section 80. Anybody listen to that and don't like it, you might as well exit the review right now. Good Kid, Mad City, we all know. I feel comfortably calling it a classic. To Pimp a Butterfly. I feel like this is when Kendrick Lamar began to transcend out of the K-Dot era into who he would become as an artist. Damn. This is a combination of Good Kid, Mad City and To Pimp a Butterfly influences to me. The perfect mix of both. Untitled, Unmastered. The man did songs on shows, and when they weren't on the album, people felt like, man, I wish I could get those records. He puts that out. Some people love that more than they loved full albums that year. The Heart series, right? Dropping these dope intros to the album, but they don't appear on the album. It's just a dope strategy to do, especially when you can create something that's really good to go with it. And now we have Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. This album is good, y'all. I'm not ready to say great because, of course, I start to compare it to what's great in his catalog. I feel like To Pimp a Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City are great albums. Comfortably call them classics. What's dope about this album that may bring it to classic status for some people, maybe not all, maybe the majority, I don't know, is that this is Kendrick being his most transparent ever in real time. See, the thing that tends to happen in hip hop, right? You get on, right? You've been writing rhymes, however long it took you to get on, you've been writing rhymes like a madman, telling your story for years, and now you got a debuted album, and now you get to tell your story. Well, see, the thing is for most rappers, after that first album, they don't really have many stories to tell after that. A couple of things change that are quite obvious to us, right? Oh, well, you're richer now. So, you can talk about your money. And sometimes they just revisit the stories from before they got on. But not many rappers are willing to talk about their life in real time. For example, Jay-Z's 444, to me, was a great album because it was the first time that Jay-Z was exclusively dedicated to talking about himself, his history, and his family. Now, some people may say, well, he's always done that. But no. He's done it on songs, here and there. I mean, you add them all up in his career, sure, you can say blah, blah, blah. But 444 was strictly dedicated to who Jay-Z was at that moment. And he was telling these personal, deep stories. Right? Beyonce did the same thing with Lemonade. They kind of tag teamed us, and we didn't know it. That's what this is. That's what this album is. It's, in some ways, it's putting you on to what Kendrick's been up to this entire time. And in other ways, it's therapeutic. because he's rapping about the things he's lived. And when you're a full-time artist and you're searching for things to rap about, it's probably because there's nothing going on. Now, he did admit having writer's block for something like 2 years or whatever. But when I listen to this album, it has to be because he wasn't drawing, to the things that were happening in his life. He wasn't drawing from them, right? Mainly, probably, like most of us, because some of it was too personal, right? Because if you start talking about being a sex addict and cheating on your fiance, well, now everybody's in your business. Now it's probably not necessarily about your music. It's about your affairs, right? With other chicks outside of your fiance. But when you talk about it in your music, well, you answer all the questions in advance. It doesn't have to pop up, somewhere in a news story. Now you have to deal with it and you want people to still like your music. No, you put it in your music, right? All of his thoughts he takes from today, from the K dot of today, and he translates those into songs that are relatable to you and I. Because let's keep it buck. Let's keep it funky. As my man Jay says, let's keep it tall. The thing is, hold up, because the video stopped a little bit. The thing with Kendrick is, in doing that, and the thing that most rappers do, versus what most rappers do, is the fact that we really can't relate to selling that much coke, can we? We really can't relate to killing a bunch of people, can we? Like we can't. You know what I mean? Like we really can't. Now there's some people listening who can, but they're not rappers. See, most rappers will talk about this stuff because it's entertainment and it sells. And don't get me wrong, I love it just as much as the next person. But I know it's just entertainment. It doesn't make me think about my own life to hear Pusha T describe coke in different ways. Same thing with Stove God Cooks. I just like it. I like the fantasy of it, just like with movies, right? Action movies, that some of that stuff ain't happen, you will die jumping from a building and shooting the enemies. But the hero lands. Now, I don't not watch those movies because I'm like, yo, that wouldn't happen in real life, so this movie is whack. No, it's entertainment. But the reality rap is more like albums like these, because you can relate, whether you're male or female, to most of the scenarios being described. So let me get off the philosophy soapbox and just get into the music and what I like and what I don't like. Overall, I like this album. Overall, I think lyrically it's dope. I feel like it's layered. It's a masterclass in the evolution of hip hop. Does every rapper now need to rap like Kendrick? No. I wouldn't want that at all. I want everybody to be different. But I feel like when it comes to talking about art and what people do, he's just doing it at a higher level. He's checking a number of boxes within his music. One thing I will say that is not the biggest problem, but it doesn't put it up at the top of my favorite Kendrick albums, is the simple fact that I don't think the production is as good as the previous albums. I feel like previous albums like Damn, like, To Pimp a Butterfly, Good Kid, Mad City, of course, I felt like the production was just way better. I felt like with this production, it's good, it's cool, but it almost doesn't separate itself from what he's released previously. And maybe that's because this is now Kendrick's sound. But I beg to differ, because I felt like Damn was more of Kendrick doing some of those different things he did musically, right? Working with artists like and musicians like Thundercat, Terrace Martin, and all of that. I felt like that was more of not experimental, but it felt like that was leaning towards a sound that would be Kendrick's sound. But then Damn felt like this is a culmination of his sound totally. But Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers feels like To Pimp a Butterfly. And that's not a bad thing musically. But I just don't feel it's as good as it was. Because let's keep it funky. You can have as many messages and metaphors and deep thoughts and reflections in your lyrics, but the music got to do something to you. You can't really lose the entertainment value. And I don't feel like it's lost here at all. I just felt like, production-wise, I will say this isn't, for me, this isn't close to being one of my favorite albums from him musically. I like what I like. I think it's cool. I think it gets stronger. I think it starts out okay. Feels more like a continuation of music we heard before, right? Songs that maybe didn't make Damn or To Pimp a Butterfly. And then I think later on it starts to open up with records like Father Time, which stood out to me, Die Hard, and probably one of the songs that stands out the most to most people, which is We Cried Together. I had to hit rewind. I was in the gym listening to this album. And when this song came on, I was like, I think I stopped paying attention for a little bit, to focus on my workout. What is going on? So I hit rewind. And for those who don't know, We Cried Together is probably the most accurate example of a toxic relationship, right? And some people will say a healthy relationship because of how it ends. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's a couple who are arguing. They're saying some of the most harshest things about one another, while also making other statements. And that's what Kendrick does, right? He finds way to throw other statements in there to make it debate. And it's a real conversation piece when it comes to relationships, especially Black relationships, because this is what some of us can relate to. I'm gonna just keep it all the way a buck with y'all. I do not subscribe to relationships like this because they can go bad if one of those parties doesn't have tough enough skin to hear some of these things being said and not be secure in this relationship. But it's real. That's the thing. It's real. You can have all the rules in the world for a relationship. You can say, I don't be in no toxic relationship. You're gonna wind up with this and you didn't even know. The song, for those, heads who like, Ghostface on here. It's a song with Ghostface and Summer Walker called Purple Hearts. At first, I didn't know Ghostface was on here. I just happened to look down and saw he was on. I said, Ghostface is on this record? Okay, let me check it out. But it's not what you think. It's not a woo record, right? It's not a boom bap record. It's more of the Ghost. What was the album he put out? Prince of Poetry, something Wizardry. Like the R&B leaning album is that Ghost that appears on like R&B records. And it's pretty dope to see Ghostface on this album because it's random, right? That's what I love about Kendrick Lamar. Think about the people who have been featured on his album in one way or another. He's worked with everyone on one album, right? He's worked with Three Stacks, you know what I'm saying? Thundercat, Terrace Martin, MC8's been on his album, Snoop, right? Kid Capri. Come on, imagine that. Kid Capri is like the DJ for To Pimp a Butterfly, right? Pete Rock, like we mentioned, Ghostface on here. This man is just creating. And it doesn't matter if you're old school, new school, whatever it may be, he's just creating. He's not looking to get features to say, yo, this is a big feature. He's doing it because it makes sense. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Kodak Black, but I was able to stomach him on it. And it has more to do with his voice than performance. I can't get to whatever the performance is because I do not like his voice. It just irritates me. I don't know. His cousin's on here, a song called Savior, which I think is dope. Baby King, who, you know, when he dropped, I like the single that featured Kendrick Lamar, but I really couldn't get into him because he just reminded me too much of Kendrick, which is to be expected, right? He looks up to him, you know, which is fine. You know, Kendrick ain't gonna be rapping forever, but we don't need a Kendrick part two. But this album ends off with a song called Mirror. And when I tell you it's about reflections of you personally, again, here he is again. Not being the first one to ever write about, you know, self-awareness, right? But just him being able to reflect in this way, still remain artistic with it, right? Still giving you bars, but giving you a personal, relatable account of himself to make you look at yourself. I mean, this is kind of what we want, and some people don't, right? Some people think hip hop should be one thing. It should just be about bars and beats, and if I'm not feeling the beats or the bars or the flows, I can't get into it. And I agree. You don't have to. But if you're looking for something more out of your music, if you're trying to understand music on a deeper level, and I'm not saying this has anything to do with Kendrick Lamar exclusively, I'm talking about what artists like Stevie Wonder created for years in the 70s, that if you listen now, it's almost like, damn, this is magical. You didn't have to be there. I wasn't there to understand it. You know, an album like Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, once you understand the context in which, you know, he created that album, or Come Here, My Dear, the context in which he created that album, and then you press play, you didn't have to be there to understand it. You're just a human going through life like he was. And that's the same thing with Kendrick, what he's doing here. And what I like also, as far as the statements he makes, right? Some people still listen to R. Kelly, right? And really see how Drake and Kanye could get together again after everything that happened, but he reflected on himself. Maybe he had some growing up to do. But a record like Auntie Diaries, right? I was listening, I was like, is Kendrick about to get canceled? Now, he would get canceled by someone who's not listening, right? Or he won't get canceled at all, but they would feel like they could cancel him because of some of the things he said, and they just discard what the song is about. But him reflecting on, you know, having a gay aunt, stuff like that, in detail, showing his ignorance from back then, showing his understanding today, or understanding back then, or lack thereof still. Look, I'm not gonna hold y'all. This is not a review to explain why you should like this album. It's not to explain why people should hold, Kendrick Lamar in high esteem. Obviously, he's my favorite artist. I think what Kendrick Lamar is doing is what some rappers tried to do, and fans like me just couldn't get into him. He's growing as an artist, and he's being allowed to grow as an artist, and people are with him every step of the way. That needs to happen more. And I'm just as guilty as the next hip hop fan, right? When Redman put out Doc's the Name, I was like, ooh, this feels so different from what I was used to. I don't know if I like it. And then he dropped Malpractice, and I was just out. I was out. And Redman has never been whack as an MC. But it's the simple fact that he tried to expand his sound, and I wasn't with it. Kendrick expanded his sound, and I'm with it. And maybe those are two different things. But I'll say this to end it off. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. It's a dope album from Kendrick Lamar. If you've never liked Kendrick, you won't like this. It's just the same thing. It will be the same thing to you. If you don't understand why people like Kendrick, I say start at the beginning. Start at the beginning, right? Go listen to Section 80. Go listen to the lyrics. Go listen to the messages within that music. And just go to each album. Don't look for what's hot or boom-bapped out. That's not Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar is beyond just being an MC at this point. He's already given us multiple indications that he could spit. But when it comes to creating his album, that is not his mission only, right? He does not want to be just an MC. He's trying to be an artist. And that's what makes his music so dope. And I feel like he still doesn't have a whack album. He still doesn't have a mediocre album. I don't know if he ever will at this point. What do you think about Kendrick Lamar's new album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers? You leave your comments in the comment section wherever you get this podcast, because it's available wherever you get podcasts. All you got to do is hit the search bar and type in the words Hip Hop Now Podcast, subscribe, and stay locked in for weekly hip-hop content. Until next time, y'all, I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace. And keep watching this game because it's going to get crazy.
Beautiful shot. Brings him within 3. We see more teams doing this nowadays. We all are firmly entrenched in the era of the 3-ball. And he does get the second one. And that gives him a 4-point cushion. Timeout. Play in the fourth quarter. Green with a screen on MP. They double team Curry. Yeah!
Talk about stepping up in a big way.
That's why they put the ball in hand.
It allowed them to just drain the clock.
Oh, the first of two, no good. A heartbreaker.
At the line for 2.
And he's able to hit the second one. And that makes it a 3-point lead. And here are the Warriors now. Here's Curry. It falls! Oh, what a sensational bucket! That brings him within 1.
That's his 5th personal foul. Team is in the penalty.
Ooh, he doesn't hit the first. That was the one they really wanted. He's got one more, though.
2 shots.
So neither attempt will fall that time for him. And it's in. I love the rapid intensity right there. Valanciunas, he is capable of doing real damage on the offensive boards. Misses the 3. It's stolen by Green. Oh, my!
Talking fans, your Pelicans dance team. Make some noise.
From deep, MP. Oh, bangs home the three. You can tell MP is in the zone right now. He goes to the arc and makes the three-shot look easy.
That's the game, folks, and your Pelicans get the win. Your Pelicans, 93. The Warriors, 90. Thank you, everyone, for making it out and supporting your team. We hope to see you again soon for the next home game.
Great work, fellas.
Drop it on the random.